Gamble's Comments New Zealand show. It is back for another week. We're going to call this the bi-weekly show. Cam Bray, hello, mate.
Yeah, good. I was just suppressing a cough there for the minute. No, I'm really good, Paul. How are you?
Good. Modern technology is a great thing, isn't it? This is only, half an hour late already, this show?
Yeah, I don't know what was wrong. Mine was all set to go, but, I would have thought you were a professional, but you couldn't get it to work.
New office, mate. No view. I've been enjoying the outside view of the people rocking up to work, but no view today.
Well, I got the promotion, and we got the demotion, and got to be the manager, but getting a smaller office to work in.
No, must say well done for that promotion too. Good feather in your cap. Good to see you got a cap on actually too.
Yeah, no, it's sunny outside here in New Zealand, so risk of burning's high.
Yeah, some people might get a little bit of a shock when they see you next or don't see you next, that's for sure, Cam. I won't go there. Plenty going on in New Zealand. Well, not really plenty going on. It's probably a bit of a quiet time, isn't it, now, with most of the sales over from a standardbred point of view, cold, wet days. So it'd be a pretty quiet time at the minute, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, officially our quietest month over here is July, but it's as good as game setters match. To be fair, June. We're coming up the shortest day.
It is today, the shortest day.
Today is it? Yeah, there you go. So I'm right onto it. We're racing at pretty much the metropolitan tracks now, just sort of a couple of times a week here in Canterbury, just to because it's sort of the sort of premium facility. You got the undercovered stables, etc., etc. So. Winter mode definitely, mate. The sales are finished. We're actually due to call for entries in 10 days' time for the National Yearling Sale. So the circle of life continues as the great movie The Lion King protests.
It does just keep rolling along, but it is probably a lot of the studs. I know a lot of people are trying to get away here in Australia at the minute. I'd imagine they're doing the same thing there in New Zealand, trying to get a week or two's holiday.
Yeah. Well, and why not too when the weather's the way it is, and we can now go places, and as of today, we officially dropped the pre-departure testing too. So all that rigmarole we had to go through to come into New Zealand no longer happens. So I do think that'll make people travel more too, because it was a bit of a hassle you've seen firsthand, the drama you had to go through. So I think that's nothing but positive.
It wasn't, to be honest, it wasn't the end of the world drama or that. It was 4 hours earlier at an airport. They're pretty boring places, and then when your plane gets delayed by 3 hours, it can be a long time sitting on your derriere doing nothing, I can tell you.
Well, mate, what do you mean? What's new?
And you get there at 4 a.m. and get woken up at 7, and yeah, anyway. While we're talking about breeding and the stallions, great to see Lazarus is staying in New Zealand. Neverly Stud are picking him up, and he's hit the ground running both in North America and I actually saw some weanlings the other day at Yerriby Farms too. So starting to make a bit of a presence around the breeding scene, Lazarus, and it's great that Neverly are going to keep him there in New Zealand and hopefully continue gaining some strength with him.
Well, yeah, he's, to be fair, of pretty, well, in this part of the world, pretty limited numbers, but I am blessed with getting an almost a daily update on Lazarus in North America. He's now up to 10 winners up there, and they're coming at all ends of the spectrum too. Like, there were some very, very well-bred Lazarus horses up there. There was some pretty modestly bred horses, ranging from $150,000 sale purchases to $10,000 sale purchases, and they're winning at all spectrums. So that's always a positive sign. Homebred horses are winning, sales horses are winning. Good, well-bred horses, blue bloods, to modestly bred horses. So it just shows you he is doing a bit of a job, you would suggest. How that correlates back to here is always a question. But on the types I've seen and the talk from the breeders, I know there's a number of breeders have on the back of the news he's standing in the South Island of New Zealand. I think that's given a lot of South Island breeders a lot more confidence to go because they sold well, they are winning well. So why wouldn't you?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I will, like I said, I was at Yerriby. I think there's either 7 or 9. I think there might be 9, 2 fillies and 7 colts.
Yep.
And fair to say, a lot of the inspections were done on those horses, so it was interesting to go there and just see them. They presented beautifully. dark coloured horses always, I reckon, sell that little bit better, don't they? The darker they are, the more people seem to like them.
People remember Lazarus, but they also very much remember his father. So, you know, and what I've seen of the Lazarus horses, there's a lot of Betters Delight about them, and I think that's probably something that people will look for in a horse. Albeit he was an outstanding individual himself, racehorse-wise. You know, you sort of draw those links back to the star stallion, the generational stallion in Betters Delight.
Yeah, definitely. That is for sure. We'll stay on Standardbreds for a sec. Gavel House, you've got your sale is on now. It's up and running with 20 lots on there, ranging from a couple of weanlings, yearlings, 2-year-olds, and then right through to some broodmares, mate.
Yeah, you got a weanling. A bit of a story about the weanling here. You'll see posted on the. We came through the weanling sale. Actually, it was posted as being sold to Mr. C. Grant at West Melton, who Cameron Grant works for Woodlands Stud. The story was the staff were going to race this horse. They've got the horse home. They've realised he's a colt. They have a massive breeding operation, and probably colts at this time of year have just become a bit of a bloody nuisance. So they've elected to race a filly, so that's why this horse has now been marketed again. You've got a yearling with a couple of 2-year-olds, some unraced horses, through to some broodmares, and in fact, quite a number of broodmares. Pretty good, pretty well related horses. Lot 16 particularly, off the back of how well Albuquerque sold last week, is actually I actually reckon it's a full relation, full sister to Albuquerque, in the fold to down by the seaside. So there you go. They've timing's everything, and even now the cousins and sisters and relations are getting on the train, so to speak.
Yeah, well, down by the seaside, of course, Pebble Beach winning the big race in North America on the way, and pretty dominant win too, actually, with a bit of an Aussie flair with Todd McCarthy. But it actually, I watched it with Greg Gangle and Roger Strong at Yerribee, and he did a fair bit of work, but geez, he won very, very comprehensively. He had the rest off the bit a long way out. American racing, some people like it, some people don't. I love their high-class horse racing, and to see a horse dominate like that was a big effort, actually, for Seaside. So I do wear other I'd say they're on my chest, this side here. I do wear other hats, but yeah, it was a pretty impressive win, that's for sure.
I was certainly doing a job, you know, and you can see why the service fees, you know, possibly how do we bump up, you know, on the back of the huge performance of the stallion up north. And again, he's a horse that we very nearly lost to the industry through to colic. So, you know, and they tell me he bounced back from that at like $1 million, you know. So full and closed, I think. I remember, you know, I better get an old Husey sorted. He was full and closed with 60 on the waiting list back when we had the wheeling sale. So, look, he's doing a super job over there in Australia. Super books.
So for the guys in New Zealand that may not be aware, his book's closed here. As you said, what do you say, 50? And I reckon you're about right. I think there's at least that already booked into him for 2024.
There you go.
50 horses that they're getting in for the year after. So in New Zealand, with your NZB hat on, Cam, you want to go through the yearling sales or weanling sales. They're going to be hard to get here in Australia. There's going to be a lot of people that won't get them. You know, could be a great opportunity for the breeders out there.
Well, then that's the probably the way life's going to go here in New Zealand in the next wee bit too, with the fact that it does look like your stallion, I think they're calling it Levy, are they? Levy's coming in. It looks very, very likely, and the fact that you have restricted books. So there's a real gem there for New Zealand breeders to keep an eye on that, because you can effectively extend the life of that stallion here in New Zealand actually far cheaper, really, especially when you look at the way the studs are going to have to try and pass that fee across, because obviously they have other owners and horses that they need to satisfy. So, albeit there's a levy, there will also no doubt be the reduction or discount structure will be thrown out the window too, I'd suggest. So it's a real gem there for New Zealand breeders to jump on that, where a horse as popular as down by the seaside, you could breed effectively cheaper to a market that desperately wants them. So again, that's just market signals and being ahead of the curve, really.
And to me, it's a no-brainer, because then you guys from NZB, you guys, you know, are winners too, because you get to sell more of those horses, and it's probably one of those things the Kiwis do definitely have to look at, your nearest neighbour and what they're after. But in saying that, the Americans are keen on the down by the seasides anyway, so it's not necessarily your nearest neighbour. It's probably your best two export options. Are very, very keen on horses
exactly,
like seaside.
and it's not going to be long till the world slowly, we're starting to look at the pre-departure things getting thrown out the window, and in our training, obviously we've got a flight scheduled to go to China in August, the first one in over 2 years now. So look, all I'll say is that yes, the Americans want them, but they haven't been able to get them because of air freighting issues and the cost of air freighting. God help us when that all opens up again, because the demand is there for our horses. All we got to do is look at the results up there. By Jesus, there's some nice horses going around that have got N or AR for their name, and if they are good over the mile, people will be after them.
No, definitely they will be very, very keen, because the son's a sun beat somewhere. That's what they love, is that mile racing. So
yeah,
born out, grown out on the beautiful countryside in New Zealand, and makes them bigger and stronger, and it's a known fact. And no one's paying me to say that. I mean, traditionally that's what happens with the Kiwi horses. They get better as they get older. One for the breeders there too, and I definitely wear a Woodland shirt. But Sweet Lou, I think, has had 20. I know he's had 22 individual 2-year-old winners this season already in Australia. So,
which is huge when you sit down and go through the results, see how many 2-year-old races there actually are.
Yep. We don't hot up until August. Our 2-year-old racing does not hot up until August. There's probably 2 to 3 a week at the minute. Like that'll be it. But I mean, that's Australia wide.
Yeah.
But still,
and they sold accordingly, mate. When you actually look at that, they sold accordingly through the wheeling sales. He is a sire that we've always said has done a very, very good job. He just probably hasn't had the winners in the blue ribbon race, classic, semi-classic type races. And if he did, well, goodness me, the stud fee would be 3 times what it is.
No, definitely. We'll say, just quickly, I do wear another hat with the Haras Trotters too. The job Love You's doing over here, and definitely on both sides of the ditch, but just recently here in Australia as well, with these better class races like Queen Elida and those, we spoke about them last week. But it's a real changing demographic of the way, I suppose, trotting's going to look here in Australia, the way Love You and a lot of those other horses that Pat has started to introduce. It probably was a little bit slow initially, but now really starting to gain some legs, and some people are really capitalising on it. And I know the guys, again, in New Zealand, Trotters probably copped a hide in the last couple of years, but I don't think I'd be giving up on them, not the way that they're growing here in Australia, that's for sure.
They might have had I wouldn't have said they copped a hiding. What they probably did do is they had a market readjustment, because the breed has probably outstripped the actual racing part of it. When that catches up, God help us, you know what I mean? And it will catch up.
Yep.
Like, there's no doubt about it. And you talk about Love You as a sire of racehorses. Fair go. We'll be chasing them until I don't have any here anyway, but we'll be chasing them until God knows when for broodmare sires too, because he's done a sensational job as a racehorse sire, but by Christ, he's going to do an even better job as a broodmare sire too.
It was interesting the other day. I think it was Tough Tussle or one of those. One as a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old might have even won. One of the 2-year-old trotters might have even won. And old Christmas, I forgot his name, Father Christmas, won as a 10-year-old.
How do you forget Father Christmas's name, mate? He comes once a year. Fair go.
He actually, for 2 years there in a row, he actually won one race a year, and it was a bit of a running joke. But he won up in Queensland as a 10 or 11-year-old. I mean, he's an evergreen. So I think that's the upside to him, mares and fillies to be breeding from, but the longevity of the racehorses and that.
Yeah, they go. Yeah. Exactly.
Yep, and I know they've got most of their frozen semen, especially for what's in New Zealand. I know a couple of years ago there was a bit of a delay, but most of that is already there. So make sure you ring Jamie McKinnon and chase that up through the Haras Trotters if you're looking for some international bloodlines. And I know Pat was over there just recently. I think there's some news to come out with another stallion potentially being domiciled here in Australia, which will be exciting. So yeah, some exciting news going there, but I wouldn't give up on those. Thoroughbreds, mate, just recently weanling sales, another upward spiral, and I was at Wingham Inglis 2 weeks ago, the week before anyway. It was up as well. It's encouraging at the minute the way horse sales are going, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it definitely is. The thoroughbreds are probably they're seeing a similar upshot, but just probably on a percentage basis, just seems that little bit high, if you know what I mean. But like, for example, that sale we had on Friday, we turned over for 132 lots catalogued, 3.8 million. 3.4, just shy of $3.5 million. with the top lot making 360,000. Now, temper that with the fact that it's actually by Savabeel, and a service fee stands for north of 100,000 out of a great race mare in Bohemian in Italy. But it had an 88% clearance through the ring, which any bloody thoroughbred sale that's huge. To be fair, as I said to someone on the phone there before that rang about it, because I go and sell a few of the thoroughbreds, when I go and auctioneer some of them, it's very rarely you forget about the past in lots, because there's always such a high rate, and generally what it has shown us, probably again like the thoroughbreds, that a well-bred horse, there's as much money around as you can get.
Yep.
And to be fair, respectfully, some of the ones that are modestly bred, that are suffering conformational issues or a bit of a backward type or whatever, you just can't sell them. And that's the same reality we have in the standardbred sales business. A product that isn't A1 type or conformation is very difficult to get rid of now, because of the sort of racing, the level of racing, the speed of racing, the susceptibility of that horse not making it is quite high, so they just don't spend.
No, but it is exciting times to be in the racehorse business. I think it's really, really good. What did I do with it, Cam? I had a hat here ready to go.
Your Special K? You had that? It's on the bench behind you, your Special K.
I don't know what I've done with my hat. This is a brekkie show. I got Regan Todd's hat. I've lost it. Graham Hand's going to tell me off. I had it here. Oh, here it is. I've got it now. I noticed the other day, mate, a little bit of a free plug for Regan Todd. I couldn't find his hat. He's got an open day, I noticed the other day. Good way of promoting. I like stables thinking outside the square a little bit. So good luck to Regan. I met him at the weaning sales, and he gave me the hat. Haven't put the hat on, so I know Graham will be very happy to see the hat out and about. But he's got an open day. Things people have to think of and do outside the square, Cam.
Exactly, and it's a great initiative getting people back in, especially when we've had such a long time where we've been sort of disconnected from the racing industry. It's a great way. I'm just trying to find actually here your stable open day, Saturday, 2nd of July. To Lavros Lodge, there in Yolthurst and Christchurch, for those that don't know. So it does it have a time here? What time it starts? Doesn't. But anyway, it'll come out in due course. But they're going to have a bit of a track work schedule for the owners that come see their horses. They're going to have a bit of a sausage sizzle and a few drinks and that. So you got to come in, guys, doing things like that. It's that someone might bring a mate along and they don't own a horse, and by the end of it, they may own a horse. So at the end of the day, good.
That's it. That's the end goal. That's exactly right. Amor Vita was pretty dominant on Queensland the other night. I see Adam Hamilton says that Nathan Purden may have unearthed another champion, another good horse. He may not have been watching much of the racing for the last couple of years in Victoria, because I think Nathan's had a nice horse for a little while somehow. Yeah,
exactly, and it's I think that's probably a little bit of a stretch of the truth. Well, that article, but I'd say it's been a pretty emerging sort of talent for a fair wee while, just quietly.
Yeah, I think it's written and spoken by Queensland, trying to pump up their carnival as the place that unearths these horses. But good luck to Nathan, and unfortunately for All Connection Spellbound being retired, but it's a win for the New Zealand breeding scene, because I think she's going to be going back to New Zealand to serve. So that part.
I see. She's got a date with Bettor's Delight too. So.
Yeah. And that's very encouraging, Cam, because there's a lot of talk of with this Eureka race that's been earmarked and things like that, quality mares in New Zealand staying here in Australia to be Australian bred, and perhaps you guys missing out on that. We want them to be back there in New Zealand. I don't care what anyone says. We need both sides of the ditch to be firing well.
Yeah, I think you've got to be... as a breeder, you'd have to be pretty confident, and you've bred the odd horse. I know I've been in this business for a long time. You'd never breed a horse for one race, and I think albeit it'd be great to have a horse start in that race. There's 10 slots. I don't know if I want to be breeding to an amongst the Australasian broodmare band, trying to breed one horse for a 10 bloody slot race. And in retrospect, when you sit down and analyse it. Not that this probably even comes into their making, but there was a New Zealand syndicate, New Zealand owned horse. That's why it's come home. But you look at the size stakes program here in New Zealand, they can run for a lot of money here in New Zealand as a 2 and 3 year old, and then still be quite a sellable product at the end of that 3-year-old career to go to Australia or to America or wherever. So, albeit you can think you're going to sell these lovely broodmares to Australia, you will to a certain degree, but I don't think at any higher rate than what we currently are, because albeit there's a lovely race, new race, there's still a lot of good stuff here in New Zealand to race for.
I think there was 3,500 horses bred in Australia last year, and there's going to be 10 slots. Like, yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Stay back in New Zealand, go through either yearling sales or race in New Zealand. That makes more sense to me. I think you got a lot bigger chance of earning a nice quid. And if you end up being the best horse and you miss out on the Eureka, if it runs for $2 million and if it gets off the ground, there's two big ifs there for a start. But if it actually happens, and you miss out on that, well, you know, you can kick the ground later on, but I reckon you'd still be pretty confident and pretty happy.
Well, there's enough other good races around, mate, to be fair. I think it's a great thing, you know, a concept. It's a concept that works well in the thoroughbreds. It's worked in the greyhounds. It's worked here in the bloody harness as well. But breeding specifically for it, no. Leave me out of that, please.
In New Zealand, there is a race called The Race, which I, for one, love the name of. I think it's one of the best names of, because you never forget it. It's just called The Race, so that's easy done. It's over in New Zealand. It'll be over $1 million by the time that foal's born as well. So yeah, and imagine the atmosphere they get if they get all the witches there with a son or daughter of Spellbound going around in the race. They won't have to worry about alcohol sponsor. There'll be plenty of it getting drunk.
Well, exactly. You know, there's a lot of upside here. You know, I don't think I'd be unhitching my wagon from Kiwi breeding just yet. No. I think the only thing that if you're a New Zealand breeder looking to head to Australia would definitely not be the Eureka. It would be your Vic bred type bonuses. That would be the only reason why I'd be going there.
Great mare
over here. Or Q bred or New South Wales bred, whatever it is. You know, it wouldn't be for no bloody Eureka. Give it a tip.
There's a great mare over here, Jada Rose, that like you guys would know about and all the rest, but her breeding record is sensational. But her race record, she was the best 2-year-old going round, and Mark Thompson, he actually thought he'd paid up for it, but he didn't pay up for the Breeders' Crown, which was the richest race when she was there going round. To this day, he swears that's what made her a racehorse, because she actually went to the paddock. It was run about now, so she was in the paddock now as a 2-year-old, and he'd earmarked that race when he found out she wasn't eligible for it. Well, he tipped her out in the paddock. You know, she went over to America. I don't know. She won over $1 million, or very close to it. You know, she won a lot of money. Come back. She's been a breeding superstar as well. So sometimes, you know, when you've got breeding, taking on all these big races isn't always the greatest thing either.
No, there's only so many times you can go to the well, isn't there? Or I think during one of your podcasts it was described as there's only so much rubber on the tyre. And I think actually the change of programming, and look, I'll put my hand up, I was a part of that here in New Zealand. It's actually going to be interesting come spring and summertime here, because like you found in Australia, there's only so much rubber on the tyre, and all of a sudden we're actually asking that tyre to use a lot of it in a short space of time. So it's going to be interesting age group racing going forward, albeit it's going to be better for the animal because it's bigger, stronger and older. Again, you're still going to the well. We're going to war. You're going to war once a fortnight there for a period of time, and it's just, you know, the breed has advanced so much towards the thoroughbred, you know, probably more so in type and you know, bone, etc. It has fined up. It's fast, speed up. We're not the big, heavy, old, tough old warhorse we used to have. And I think it's going to be interesting how going forward it's going to be a real management thing for a lot of stables, how they work through all that.
No, couldn't agree more, mate. I think, but it'll be fun. It's going to be good to see it, and it could end up being, again, Majestic Cruiser. He made his way over to New Zealand with a lot of success, so we might, for once, see Australian horses potentially going back over and being able to race over there for a continued period too, not for one race like that.
Exactly, and you know, well, we've spoken about this on your podcast and this forum many times. The sooner we realise that actually we need an Australasian Grand Circuit, you know, or Australasian classic racing scene, the better it is for both industries, because when we buy into your racing, you buy into our racing, all it does is open up a whole big new demographic. and we just need to take down some of those barriers, and clubs need just to think a wee bit outside the square with some of those nice races. Majestic Cruise is exactly the exact reason why we did what we did up in Auckland with the race, etc., to try and attract them out. Whether the race being first was the right decision, because really we had them all come out, the majority of them went straight back. Whether we can use them again for a bit more, but you look at that carnival we've just come off the back of, mate, and you look at all those good Premier Open class races, not one race was won by one horse twice.
Yep. And
now that's good for business too.
It is, and then hopefully, every 3, 4, 5 years we get a Lazarus maybe come through, and then that's good for business as well, because you get that superstar. Everyone wants to go and watch them. But I agree, spread it out, spread the love, and go from there.
Yeah.
Cam, thank you. Timmy White, don't have your hat with me, mate. If you're wondering where it is, it's actually in the back seat of my car. Brecken Farms in the back seat of my car. Haras Trotteurs in the back seat of my car. So the NZB Standardbred hat is the only one that gets done. I'd put one of their vests on James Jennings if you're watching, but I haven't got one. He still won't give me one. He's hard work, isn't he?
We'll call you, mate. Don't call us, we'll call you.
Cam, thank you very much, mate. Enjoy the week. We might be back in a week or two, and we'll go from there. We'll see what happens. If there's something happening, we'll come through a bit early, but otherwise I'll talk to you in a fortnight on this platform. But if anyone wants to get any news out there, by all means get in touch with Cam as well, because we're happy to spread the love if we know about it. So we'll get it out there for the guys in New Zealand.
All the best, guys.